Hi, Corey. I'm sorry you can't come in this afternoon to go over some stuff with me, so I thought I'd do a little video and show you a couple things and give you a little feedback about these two research pieces, one of which is going to have to go in your portfolio. So you might want to, I don't, after you listen to what I say here, the decision will have to make is which one of the two is going to be the easiest to work with. Because I've got this place proposal up here, let me start with this one. You seem like you do a pretty good job here in establishing the problem. What I'm not seeing is a very specific thesis. That is, what's your proposal? What are you going to do about it? There's some pieces of things in these questions, but rather than organize it with these questions, how do you help the addict? How do we stop the abuse? I'd rather see a specific proposal that may not answer all of these questions, may touch on some of them. Usually, that would be a thesis statement, that's going to make your claim and talk about why this is the best, give the reasons that you've chosen this as a solution to this problem. It usually would come near the beginning. Typically, it's at the end of the first paragraph in a short essay. You do have quite a bit of the problem establishing here, so you could put it at that point after you had your paragraphs about the problem. So that's one thing, making a clearer thesis and then explaining that particular solution rather than sort of scattershot a bunch of different things that might work. The other big issue here is has to do with citation. So if we start down at the bottom here, and this is an issue for both this essay and your um, playground essay. What you're giving me here is just a URL. Now, that's not what MLA does in terms of citation. Let's see, and it looks as if you do have to, maybe this is three sources. It's kind of hard to tell. What you need to do is do the MLA citation here. So if you go to the course blog, there are resources that show you how to do this. There's a 8 or so page guide that the library did that you could look at, and it gives some examples. I noticed it looked like you had a Taunton Gazette thing here. That would be a newspaper found online. So see if we can see something like that. Article in a newspaper. This would be able to do it. So look at this format. You could use this as a model. So you need the author of the article, last name, comma, first name. This had two authors, so it's got the second author here that's in regular order. But if it was just one author, which would be the normal situation for a newspaper article, you just have that person's name and then a period. In quotation marks, you have the title of the article with caps across here for most of the important words. The name of the newspaper is in italic after that with a comma. The date of the that the article was posted, and then the website, the URL for the article. After that, some sources recommend that you also put an access date, and that'd be a period here, and then a capital accessed, ACCESSED, with the date that you got it. Note that dates in MLA are in this format: day, month, year. So that's what you need to do that and get. And this again, this is 9 pages long. That has information. If you have more questions, the other um, source is this Purdue Online Writing Lab, has navigation here. So if your sources were electronic, which yours all seem to be since you have URLs, if you click here, and it has general information for the basic style, and then particular situations, an entire website, a page on a website, which would be a common type of source, an article in a web magazine, etc. And it explains here. Some of them give a model. Um, and then give the example. So that's one thing that you need to do for the sources. Then the other thing is in-text citation. So what that is, everything that's listed here in your source, you have to actually use someplace in the paper, and you have to tell your reader where that is. So as you're getting some information, and let's see if I can see something that looks like it came from a source. Uh, I don't know, this section 35, you may have known this information, but if there's something that you used from the source, um, at the end of that sentence or at the end of that series of sentences, right, but in between the last letter of the last word and the period, you need to um, insert parentheses, and then inside the parentheses, you put whatever you've got. Well, let me go back here to this one. Inside the parentheses, you put the first element of what you did on your works cited at the bottom. So if there's an author, a personal author, the citation is going to start with that person's last name. So that's what goes in parentheses, the last name of the author. So couple things. You have to make sure that all of these things that you list here, you actually use, and then within the body here, you have to put parentheses and say where that information comes from. Um, Same issues apply to this playground one. The one thing I said in my email to you last night was in this report here, you want to actually be using some information from at least two of your sources. Um, a lot of this information seems really general. Maybe it came from a source, but it's hard for me to see. Well, this part maybe free play helps with. This is something that looks like it might have come from a source. Now, I know not the exact words. Presumably, you put this in your own words since you didn't use quotation marks. But if it's information that came from a source, you need to cite it. And that means, again, between this R and the period, you put parentheses and the last name of the author if you have an author, or the title of the article if you don't. And again, you need to get these into MLA format in order to tell really what belongs here. Um, you, this does seem very general. One of the grading criteria was that you use some specific information from the source, so I'd like to see something a little more specific, not this general information that most of us already know. You do need 5 sources here. I'm not sure what's going on here with this one, but, and it looks like there are only 3. Um, you don't need to use all 5 of them. You just need to use at least 2 of them in writing your report here. And then again, you need to get these into MLA format. The other part of the assignment is that annotation. So um, I remember you said that you looked at that video that I'd done, and I talk about the annotation. You can see it. Let me see without actually playing the video. You can see it here on this person. So the person has their citation, author, title, blah blah blah, and then below that there's a paragraph that has 3 sentences or so that sums up what's in the article, and then a sentence that evaluates the source. Why is it a credible source? Look at who the author is. How do you know they're an expert? Where was the source published? How does that establish its credibility? Those types of things. So I'd suggest that you look at some of the other um, students' essays. One of my better students this semester in different classes, this Ely is a really good student, so you might look at hers. Aaron and Jess are good students. If you look at Jess's, she's got her cover letter. I'm not sure whether she put actually three. Okay, so she's got. So here's she did a PowerPoint rather than a report, but she's got her citation here, and this is the annotation part, and that's what you need for every source. Um, okay, so I hope that helps. I'm not sure what your timing is going to be like. Um, as long as the portfolio is up with its pieces, and I'm sure that there's going to be something for them to read with a cover letter, and which I think you already have up, and your three pieces. Um, as long as I can see that by 8 o'clock tonight, I'll put your name on the list of blogs to be read. You still can go ahead tonight and do some editing to get those citations in better shape. The in-text citations, the combination of not having in-text citations and not having the MLA format may I'd be really concerned about whether your portfolio would pass with those. So, again, you just need to put one of them in the portfolio. So, you might figure out which would be the easier one. The the proposal has fewer sources, and you don't need to do the annotations. So, on the other hand, there may be more structural stuff that you want to do with that essay. So you gotta weigh those two things. Um, and then the piece of those two pieces, the one that does not go in the portfolio, you can turn in a final draft as late as the final, or actually, your final is on Wednesday, and I'll of next week, and I'll accept those papers through Thursday, since I also have a final that day. All right. Hope that helps. If you have some questions tonight, feel free to shoot me an email. I'll be online most of the night. Good luck.